Good evening, everyone. This is New Brighton breaking down the Harriet Tubman agenda. Now, when you're dealing with Harriet Tubman, what do they call that in this day of time? Operation. She was dealing with black ops. She was an agent. She was an agent of the black ops. That's what they call it at this day and time. Now, when you're dealing with this slavery back in the South, what Harriet Tubman was doing was, it's the same as today. It's the same thing. What she would do is she would send an agent, one of the agents. It might have been a slave that she had knew, or she had got word, because it was secrecy going on. The only way you can move like this is through secrecy. That's it. There's no way you can move the way that Harriet Tubman moved unless it was secrecy. That's it. So when she would send her agents out into these plantations, they would go into the plantation, and what she was doing, she was testing them. So they would go there, and their goal was to gather recon, to gather intel, recon. So breaking down the word recon, what does recon mean? If you look at the Webster dictionary, it's not going to tell you what it really means when you're decoding this stuff. Once you're activated, you decode it. Recon means they were reconning. What does that mean? So when she was sending an agent up in there, the agent had to gather intel, and they had to con the slave master and the slave master's hierarchies. They had to con them, because if they knew what they was doing, then they would be punished. They would be persecuted, killed, humiliated in front of the other slaves. So she would send them in to gather recon. And some of the slaves that went in, that Harriet Tubman was trying to help, they couldn't follow the agenda right. They couldn't. They just couldn't do it. And she already had knew, because once she sent that one back to the one, once she sent that one in there, she would know. She already would know if everything hit the fan, then she would just move on to the next. She would move on to next, because she already knew that the recon had to be done. The intel had to be done. They had to gather the intel. Intel turns into information. That's why she was doing that. She would send them in there, or she would send one in there, because you couldn't send a whole bunch in there. You only had to send one. You send one up in there. They gather. They gather the recon, the intel, and then they would come back and report. And some of them, they were scared. Some of them, wasn't about that life, and she would know that, and then she would move on. She would leave them. She would leave them in I'm gonna say the past. Leave them in the past, and then she would move on. But when she found the right one, because there was only two. There was only two options that Harriet Tubman had, that she had figured out. Now, either mankind from the north, or even from the south. I don't know, because obviously she had to leave from the south to figure out which route to take to get up north. So she was actually being helped, or she had saw something and she took her chances. She saw something. She knew that there was a defect. I'm gonna use the Matrix. There was a defect in the Matrix. She saw it, and she took her chance, and she was like, "Oh, okay, this is what's happening. Oh, I didn't know that." the two chances that Harriet Tubman had received to figure out what she had to do to move through a certain way. Because when you're dealing with slavery back in those days, you had to move at night. You had to control the night, the night, the lunar energy. She had to control that. She had to know how to manipulate these hounds, because you had the hounds, you had the canines. The canines didn't get popular worldwide until Hitler had them. When Hitler had the canine, and I think some Russians did too, but that's when the canines got popular. But what they were using was the hounds. They were using the hounds. The hounds were the ones that were seeking the slaves when they had ran. So when Harriet Tubman would move, she would move a certain way so the hounds couldn't find her. How was she moving like that? How was she moving through the darkness? Because they didn't move in the daytime, they moved at night. In the daytime they stood still because they already knew, well, she already knew that they couldn't move in the daytime. So what did Harriet Tubman have to avoid these hounds and these dogs? Harriet Tubman, she was hauling massive amounts of pepper. The same thing that's sitting on your kitchen table right now. That's what she was hauling. She was hauling pepper around to throw the dogs off, because she would throw the dogs off. But what happened, it's like anything else that you do, you get better at it. So she kind of knew the pattern on how to lay the pepper down so these dogs will get thrown off. And then the only thing that she was concerned about, she was concerned about a couple of things. The only thing she was concerned about was the being seen and footprints. So she was getting away of the footprints, and also she was avoiding. She was running around in stealth. She was in stealth mode. She was moving at night, and she was in stealth mode. And she had that pepper on her. She had pepper, what she was doing, she would have stashes of pepper on a route, because you needed a lot. You needed to throw the dogs off. You had to throw these hounds off, because one thing about mankind back in the day, they were smart, but they weren't intelligent. They were not intelligent. And see, the intelligence is always going to rule over smartness. The intel is always going to rule over information. So when they were moving at night, and you probably had a couple of slaves, when she was going into the pouch and she was sprinkling that pepper, you probably had a couple of slaves like, what's that? She's like, don't even worry about it. She probably told him it was magic or something. They're like, is she a witch? Like, what's going on? Because she knew that she had to protect that pepper. She had to protect it, and she didn't say nothing about it, because she knew once that got leaked, then they'll start putting the lockdown on the pepper that was being circulating through the South. Because the only way that you can move, the only thing that they had, you got to look at what you had at that time. They had access to pepper, right? So they had access to that. So that was the main key to elude the dogs. That's why they had to move at night, because if they moved during the day, they might be seen by another slave owner, other slave that was walking around with a note, because they used to give them notes, because the slaves couldn't read. So they was giving them notes. So Harriet Tubman knew all this. That's why she moved a certain way. Trust me, if you got close to that pepper and you was trying to be nosy, Harriet Tubman would blow your head off. She was protecting that pepper because she knew the power in that. She knew the power in just having that pepper on her. She probably had so many compartments in her gown, in her dress, just to hold that, because she knew that some days might not go the same day. It might not go the same way as the last day. You might have to sit there for 2 days before you can move around. But the only way that she was throwing the hounds off was with the pepper. Now, what do mailmen carry around with them when they're dealing with these dogs? They carry pepper spray. It throws the dog off. The dog cannot think on the time frame that it's at. It has to sit back and gather its has to gather everything back up before it can go hunt again. So it's just the same way. Like if you're in your household, I'm gonna give you an example. You in your household, right? And you lost your keys. You're like, I'm looking for my keys. Where are my keys at? So somebody kicks your door, and I'm just giving an example. Somebody kicks your door in and they spray you with pepper spray. You gonna be looking for your keys? You gonna be wondering where your keys is at? No, you're not. You're gonna be concerned about getting the pepper out your eyes, getting water, clearing yourself out, because that's the type of magnetism that pepper can do to someone or an animal. Harriet Tubman was protecting that pepper, that organic pepper, the strong pepper. Not, it wasn't the stuff that you buy at the supermarket. There was the stuff straight off, the plant, and it was ground up and it was potent. It was very strong. It throws the dog scent off. Harriet Tubman was walking around with pounds of pepper. Believe that. That's how she was maneuvering. That's how, when the slave masters or one of Uncle Ruckus's will wake up and they be like, oh, there's six people gone. They send the alarm out. What they do? They send the hounds. That's the first thing they do. They send the hounds. They sniff their bed, then they send the hounds out. So how was Harriet Tubman maneuvering through that with just a pistol and herself? She had that pistol and she had that pepper. That pepper was what was throwing the dogs off. And then the other thing that she had figured out was the footprints. She had to get away from the footprints. That's why she used the water. She used the water and she used lakes, because then you divert your footprints to a different area. So if they're smart enough, like I said, not even smart, if they're intelligent, because mankind has never been intelligent. They always been smart. They always been taking everything and been parasites off the back. So Harriet Tubman had figured that out, that they were smart and not intelligent. So when she was using these waters, these lakes, that she was using massive rocks, she was using trees, she was using the whole terrain to move around, to get certain bloodlines up out of there. At that time, I'm pretty sure she didn't know that that's what she was doing. She was doing it for her people, and she was basically sacrificing herself to move her people forward. But there were certain bloodlines down south that had to get up out of there. There was a couple of them bloodlines that had to go. They had to get up out the south. So that's how Harriet Tubman moved. And if you got close to her pepper, or if she thought that you wasn't about the situation, then she just blow your head off. And that's how it's going to be in the future. Dealing with a lot of people that's out here right now, celebrities, whatever. It don't even matter. It's going. Time repeats itself to a certain extent. And if certain people gotta go, they gotta go to move the planet forward. Harriet Tubman understood that. She received the intel, she took it, and she walked with it. The dogs could not mess with her because she had that pepper on her. And you know one thing about that is they don't say nothing about this in the history books because they always alter stuff that's powerful. This is powerful. Now, if she said this when she made it back up north and she was getting older, she might have told people, I was using the pepper, this and that, but then she might not have, right? But if she did, they weren't pushing into the books because that's a sign of intel. That's a sign of power. So that's why they're not going to push it in the books. For that reason, because it's power. It's New Brighton. And I had to break this down because I was receiving intel on this all last night on how she was moving through the moonlight, moving through that lunar energy, moving through them canines, moving through those not canines, I'm sorry, moving through those hounds, manipulating them, making them feel small. They were smart, but they wasn't that smart because they wasn't intelligent. It's the activated one, New Brighton. I'm out.